government, or national security. Brannon brings the issues of the day into clear focus through the lens of a Judeo-Christian worldview. And now, here is your host, Brannon Howse.
And welcome to the broadcast on this Tuesday night, the 28th of April, 2026. We're going to be joined tonight by Tom Renz. We have breaking news, and that is another indictment of former FBI Director James Comey. And we're told from the DOJ today, from the DOJ podium, there has been put out by the grand jury an arrest warrant. So we'll see where all this is going with Tom Renz as one of our guests tonight. We're also going to have on Nic Hulscher. Nic is going to be reporting on this breaking story. Top Fauci advisor indicted in first criminal prosecution against a senior COVID official. Hey, is this about trying to get this guy to flip and work with the DOJ so they can really go after the maybe bigger individual, which would be Fauci himself? I don't know. I'm going to ask Nic Hulscher what he thinks about that. I do also need to back up a little bit. Tell you, I want to ask Attorney Tom Renz, who's worked on a lot of cases related to election integrity. We'll play a report tonight out of North Carolina. 34,000 dead people still on the voter rolls in North Carolina. Well, hopefully they'll clean those off. And again, this is hopefully happening state by state, because the fall elections are going to be here before we know it. We're also going to talk to Michael Weiner tonight about this. The U.S. government sold $524 billion of Treasury securities this week. And, of course, inflation to surpass the T-bill yields. What does all this mean for you, the average American, and your purchasing power, the destruction of your currency? And I want to talk about the fact that now we have apparently groups like Walmart putting in digital price tags. They're moving toward digital price tags. Is this because there's going to be the need to change prices very quickly? Are they anticipating inflation where prices need to be changed very quickly? Or are they anticipating shortages in food, and therefore prices will be going up and needs to be changed quickly? I don't know. We're going to ask our guest, Mike Weiner, about that tonight. And then I want to talk about the historical rate of inflation. I've been reading the last couple of days about how when we move from massive inflation to hyperinflation, how quickly it moves. That in some cases, prices double every 3 to 4 days. Or in the instance of Hungary, back in 1945 to 1946, prices were doubling every 15 hours. You know, the point is this: when things begin to fall apart and collapse, they move, and they move fast. And a lot of people, they aren't aware of what's coming. They're not aware of what is finally on top of them until it's too late. And then they can't do anything about it because capital controls have been put into place. And they can't get to their money. They can't get money out of their 401 or their IRA, or even the bank maybe has put in capital controls. So I want to talk about that. Play a clip also from Bill Maher interviewing David Cross, just to show how many people don't know what it is that's really going on. They say, hey, I'm for somebody, and then they are told the facts about that somebody, and they're like, what? So the point is, a lot of Americans are not informed. And when that happens also in the area of finance, many Americans are going to be shocked when this thing starts to unravel very quickly. I also want to talk to Dr. Lana tonight, and I want to specifically talk to her about the connection between your gut health and depression. Your gut and depression, particularly an article about about your gut. Sorry about that. Your gut bacteria. You did hear that little slip, right, Logan? Yeah, well, we'll just keep rolling here and act like it didn't happen. About your gut bacteria and the connection to depression. All right. Are you guys all done laughing at me now? I can hear them laughing, Logan. They're all laughing at me. So we got Nic Hulscher, we got Dr. Lana, we got Tom Renz, we got Mike Weiner. Am I leaving anybody out? Logan? Yeah, I mentioned her already. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I got them all. I got them all. Oh, we had a real breaking news story. I think this occurred at one of the local rodeos, and all I can say is God bless the dog. But the man had a health emergency, and the dog rushed in to provide CPR. They got to check to see if he's breathing. Nope, not breathing. Back at it. Check his breathing again. Oh, there he goes. He went down. And the police dog comes running in. Wow. Boy. I think I could teach Dolly to do that, Logan. Yeah, he was checking his breathing and his heart. And it's up. Oh, I better keep going. That's a good boy there, right, Logan? That's a good boy. You love it how I find these videos? Speaking of dogs, you ready for the transition, Logan? Here we go.
Reads like a climate change denier's manifesto. When climate change is flooding our streets, poisoning our air, driving up healthcare and disaster costs, how can the EPA justify abandoning that duty to protect Americans to appease polluters under the false flag of economic growth?
Following the law, Section 202 of the Clean Air Act, where does it say anything about fighting global climate change? Loper Bright, Supreme Court case, you familiar with it?
No, I maybe others are. I'm not, but let me ask.
But that's really important. As a member of Congress, Loper Bright says that we as an agency don't have the authority to get creative if Section 202 of the Clean Air Act.
No, but you don't have, excuse me, you do not have the right to say climate change does not exist, that it's a hoax, and that's where this administration is coming from.
I understand you're upset that you don't.
You don't have the right to say that climate change doesn't exist, that it's a hoax. Well, yeah, you do. It's called free speech. But interestingly enough, this video comes out today. Logan showed it to me. I'm like, I got to play that because that fits with what we were talking about last night. I wonder if this woman knows anything about, spraying chemicals in the atmosphere to create clouds, we're told, to keep the heat trapped down so that the heat is trapped down on the earth so that they can then elevate the heat, the temperatures, and then use that as justification to follow the science. And therefore we need more draconian bills to control how far you can drive your car and carbon tax credits. I wonder if she's aware of any of this, because that's what we're being told by a very well-esteemed attorney last night who's brought a federal case in Colorado in federal court over these chemicals, chemtrails, spraying. But she says, you don't have the right to say global warming doesn't exist. Climate change doesn't exist. Really? You don't have the right to point out a scam when you see it?
You know what Loper Bright is? Do you know what the major policies doctrine is?
I'm upset because
you know what the major policies doctrine is?
Let me just
You're a member of Congress. You should know.
Well, you have moved from someone who defended the environment to all of a sudden
being very defensive about not knowing the two biggest landmark Supreme Court cases of the last year with regards to your question.
You are very defensive about changing your policy and your positions with regard to the environment.
Okay.
Now, you just tell
Do you want me to tell you what the two biggest Supreme Court cases are of the last few years?
This is what I want you
Michigan
to tell
versus
me.
EPA.
Whoa.
West Virginia versus EPA.
You're here because you need money from us. So halt for the second and wait for the questions and answer the question.
Well, I answered your question,
and you
didn't like my answer because you don't know what Loper Bright is, because you don't know what the major policies doctrine is, because you're asking me about Section 202 of the Clean Air Act, and you don't read it. You don't know what it says.
Listen, and what you want to do is to deny.
No, I actually read the law. I do my homework.
Really?
You're just somebody who likes to have the microphone on. You know what I have to do? I read the law. I read the Supreme Court cases.
To this, and I would say
what you should do for your constituents is actually read statute.
The budget is at real risk.
Read your Supreme Court.
This is the Appropriations Committee.
Oh, you care about science? Now you're threatening to defund it?
Oh, my God. No, you don't fund
because
science.
You don't know what Loper Bright is. Because you don't know what the major policies doctrine is. Your message to our folks at the EPA is that you wanted to fund us.
I don't have to listen to this BS.
The BS.
That's bad science. She doesn't like his bad science, Logan. Oh, wow. I've always kind of liked Lee Zeldin. Haven't you, Logan? Seems like I don't know much about him. That's probably why I like him so much. Whenever you get to know too much about some of these people. But I've always kind of liked his demeanor and his style. He just seems kind of like a laid-back, kind of normal guy. But he wasn't taking any of her garbage, but yet he was still being, I think, respectful. But wow, what a piece of work she is, right? Let's see. Is there anything else? Let's see. Yep, there's oh yeah, with the king. Isn't that interesting? The no king people, they don't want any kings, no kings, but they were all standing and cheering and taking pictures of King Charles. Well, what's that all about, Logan? You can show footage of the king if you want. What did the White House put out? The White House? Are you on the mic or are you just talking to me? Oh, you should get on the mic. Everybody loves to hear you talk, Logan. Here's a new article of what he's looking for, whatever he's looking for, over at technocracy.news. Boom! United Arab Emirates exits OPEC. The end of the petrodollar and the rise of IMEC. Remember us talking so much about IMEC? India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor is what that stands for. History has just been made. The petrodollar is dead. Asset tokenization will replace the dollar when pricing oil. The IMEC corridor is rebooted with or without the Strait of Hormuz. All of this at the hands of the UAE. The balance of power in the Middle East has shifted. This validates my new book, The New Economics of Technocracy. April 28, 2026, the United Arab Emirates announced its withdrawal from OPEC effective May 1st, ending nearly 6 decades of membership in the oil cartel that has governed global energy markets since 1960. The announcement was brief. The implications are historic. What the UAE did on that date was not merely resign from an organization. It served formal notice that the architecture of global energy commerce, the petrodollar system that has underwritten American financial hegemony since the Nixon era, is being dismantled and replaced. The timing tells the story. The Strait of Hormuz has been under effective Iranian blockade since February 28, 2026, when the United States and Israel launched Operation Epic Fury against Iran and assassinated the supreme leader, Ali Khamenei. See if I can get to the bottom of it. World Liberty Financial and the Spy Sheik's $500 million bet. Well, we'll get into all that tonight. And it's talking about how this corridor is waiting on a green light. Trump and the Board of Peace and the privatized corridor. We've talked about all that before. Well, this is a long piece. Oh, this is a long piece. Woo-wee. All right, you guys, we need to get Patrick on tomorrow night. I just saw this just before we went on the air. But we need to get Patrick on about this. Let's book him for tomorrow night. Think we can get him for tomorrow night, Logan? Let's go ahead and set that up. That's big news tonight. All right, before we go to Tom Renz, I hope you'll go to Worldview Tube. Did you have something for me, Logan? Logan?
It was just a post that the White House put out related to the king.
What'd they say?
2 kings.
2 kings? He loves to tweak these people, doesn't he? That's official White House. Wow. I heard that the prince, that's old habit. The king, King Charlie. I hear King Chuck mentioned the Declaration of Independence, and the entire Congress stood up and applauded.
Yep.
It was almost like, yay, we're glad we're not connected to you anymore. You think he took it that way? I don't think he was expecting, do you have the clip? I don't think he was expecting a standing ovation at the moment. He seemed a little like, but I kind of would, if I were the king, I would take it as a little bit of a, insult. Not that I really care, but he's like, talking about the Declaration of Independence, when we broke away from them and everybody stands up and applauds. Oh, well, it was kind of interesting. Do you have the clip? He's looking for it. In the meantime, you guys like what we do here? You appreciate all we do here? You want to support your health and us at the same time? Worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Of course, all the stuff I take. I drink the water. that's got the water filter from worldviewwater.net. We got the Gatatana. I take that every night with my dinner. We got the Bella Grace. I take that every day. I've already had that. You got the solar generators. I have one of those, the Delta Echo 400. You have the satellite phones, bulletproof backpacks, all of that and more at worldviewtalk.com. Squish for Life, that's the Numi with the glutathione to detox your cells. Worldview Healthcare, that's so you can get your antibiotics and have those on hand if you need them. There's the glutathione or the Gatatana that I take every night. I have that with my dinner. A little glass of Gatatana. Dolly gets to have a scoop on her food every morning. All of it's there. The melissaprotein.com, I guess those are going like hotcakes. melissaprotein.com. So there you go. It's all at worldviewtube.com/sponsors. worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Do we have the clip by King Chuck? Almost. Why is it taking?
I lost it.
You lost it. I think I could have found it, Logan.
I know. I was helping Max with one.
Oh,
I got it here.
Okay, here we go. Here's King Chuck today in Congress. Here we go.
Of the principles reiterated, often verbatim, in the American Bill of Rights of 1791. And those roots go even further back in history. The U.S. Supreme Court Historical Society has calculated that Magna Carta is cited in at least 160 Supreme Court cases since 1789, not least as the foundation of the principle that executive power is subject to checks and balances. Of the principles.
All right. Well, of course, you know, when they invaded the colonies, the king was breaking his own Magna Carta, his own British common law. And it was a mess, obviously, but we won. But yeah, I don't know.
That was a different one even then.
That was even a different clip than the one I was talking about, Logan.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can find it, Logan. King Charles on Declaration of Independence.
For the great honor of addressing this joint meeting of Congress, and on behalf of the Queen and myself, to thank the American people for welcoming us to the United States to mark this semi-quincentennial year of the Declaration of Independence. And for all of that time...
Look at his face. Oh, okay. Wow. Okay. Yeah, yeah.
Aren't you lucky? And for all of that time, our destinies as nations have been interlinked.
There you go. All right. Well, that's good. Good stuff there, Maynard. Good stuff there. All right. So we got a big program for you tonight, guys. Big program. Lots of guests. Tweet, text, email, Facebook, Getter, True Social. Tell everybody we are here. Hey, guess what came in this week? We got many boxes of these cards, and you can order them up, folks. We got behind because we had to go get them printed, but they're printed now, and you can order up all these you want. We sent them out in 20 packs, absolutely free. Pass them out to your family and friends. They're double-sided, full-color printed. Tell your family and friends and maybe a waiter or waitress at a restaurant. Pass them out around town and introduce people to Worldview Tube. Again, they're absolutely free. You can get them at worldviewstore.com. 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 And let's see, anything else? Oh, don't forget about our national conference coming up. About half the tickets are already gone. Worldviewtube.com/events. Worldviewtube.com/events. We got a big lineup, folks. That it is free, but you will need to have a ticket to secure your seat. worldviewtube.com/events. It starts on Friday night at 6 p.m. Central. Then on Saturday, again, it starts on Saturday that should be 9 a.m., Logan. Oh, no. It's through, but we should put the times on there. People are starting to ask what time. Well, I'll just tell you, it'll start at 6 p.m. on that Friday night, and it will start at 9 a.m. on that Saturday morning. Yeah, and it's not going to go to 9 p.m., so we should take that off. It will not go to that long. I would say we'd be done by 6 p.m. I think we'll be done by 6 p.m. that night. I'm not going to go to 9 o'clock. Everybody will be too exhausted for that. We used to do that, but it's a little long. That's long. So we'll go starting at 6 p.m. on Friday night, 9 a.m. Saturday morning, and we'll go to about 6 p.m., 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. on that Saturday. We'll have a lunch break in there, all kinds of good stuff. But get your tickets because they're going fast. They are free, but you will have to have a ticket. worldviewtube.com/events. All right, let's get started. All right, joining me now is Attorney Tom Renz. Let's talk about James Comey being indicted once again. We are getting reports there also has been an arrest warrant put out for him. There was a press conference held this afternoon. Here's just a little bit right here from the DOJ today.
He knowingly and willfully making a threat to take the life of and to inflict bodily harm upon the President of the United States. Count 2, same day, May 15th, 2025, that the defendant, James Comey, knowingly and willfully transmitting in interstate commerce a communication that contained a threat to kill the President of the United States. Both of these counts carry a maximum term of imprisonment of 10 years.
Should we expect more indictments of this sort? For example, in 2020, Gretchen Whitmer did a TV hit with 8645 on her desk in the background. Is that the kind of thing you would pursue? And then just really quickly, should Comey expect to face more charges for his role in the Russia collusion investigations?
I'm not going to comment on other investigations involving Mr. Comey. He was indicted in the Eastern District of Virginia. That was dismissed on procedural grounds because of the judge's finding regarding the U.S. attorney. So that case is under appeal. As far as other investigations that are happening, it would not be appropriate or fair for me to comment on that time. As far as other incidents of threats against the President of the United States, those will be investigated. Every case is different. The facts are different. Who makes the threat matters. What the threat says matters. You're right. The question about intent matters, and we have to prove that. That's something that's our job, and that's something that prosecutors will have to do in front of a jury at the right time. But you cannot compare. It's not fair to the American people. It's not fair to the defendant. And it's certainly not fair to the prosecutors to compare, well, if you did it here, why didn't you do it there? Every case is different, but there's one thing that will never be different, which is that you cannot threaten to kill the President of the United States.
All right. Now, that's what was said today. I don't know how many of you have seen this clip that was some time ago. I don't know when this was. It was some time ago, I believe. Maybe Logan can find out, but here's James Comey on, what's this dude's show? What's his name? Stephen Colbert. See, I don't even know his name. Stephen Colbert. Here's what James Comey said on Stephen Colbert. Because remember, you just heard the acting attorney general say we're going to have to prove intent. Well, obviously, this is going to come into play. Are you buying what he's selling here?
Beach. What happened? You walking on the beach and you saw this on the beach?
Yeah, my wife and I, Patrice, were walking on the beach and saw those numbers in shells on the beach. And
you didn't do this, somebody else did this.
Yeah, somebody else did it. We were on a walk preparing for this week, the rollout of my book.
Yep.
She looked at it and said, why'd someone put their address in the sand?
All right.
And then we stood at it, trying to figure out what it was. And she'd long been a server in restaurants. And she said, you know what I think it is?
Yeah.
I think it's a reference to restaurants when you would 86 something in a restaurant.
Right, it's off the menu.
Yeah. I said, no, I remember when I was a kid, you'd say 86 to get out of a place. This place stinks, let's 86 it.
Right, I was a bartender. You would 86 a customer if they were getting drunk. Like, let's 86 them. Let's, like, give them a low-proof alcohol or something like that. Yeah.
And so I said, I think it's a clever political message. And she said, you should take a picture of it. I said, sure. And then she said, you should Instagram that. And boom.
Well...
All right. Joining me now is Tom Renz. Well, that was when his book came out, so that had to be well over a year ago, right? So are you buying that, Tom Renz? And how hard will this be if you have to prove intent?
Yeah. So, I mean, listen, House, I don't know where to go with this case. First of all, no, I don't buy anything he said there. That's absolutely absurd. They were quite clearly covering up what he did. It looked very scripted to me. I don't believe a word of it. I also don't believe that he just found 8647 on the beach randomly. I mean, nothing about that seems believable to me. That said, what is interesting is when we look at all the different things James Comey has done, the one thing we're going to charge him with is, this it's a weak charge, to be honest, House. I mean, it's weak. Threats against the president. I looked up because I knew I was coming here, and since it's my buddy House, I did some homework. I looked up the origins of 86. I mean, 47 is self-explanatory, and I ran AI searches on like 4 different search engines. And I really couldn't even find anything about that. Like, it's a very vague thing. And I know it's popular right now, but it basically became popular because Comey did this. I think this is a tough prosecution. It's going to be hard to say that to prove that this was an actual threat against the president. And to me, this looks like they're trying to save face because they threw the last Comey case. And, maybe they can get a few months in jail or something out of this and claim that they care.
Do we really think the former FBI director is going to go to prison?
I mean, I got to be honest, this case is a little bit rough. To suggest that a picture of some shells was him making a threat against the president, I mean, that's...
Why not Russia? Can they not? I mean, why would they not go after the big one? Russia.
Well, this is the problem I have, House. I mean, I'm looking over because I made some notes here. I mean, you got the Crossfire Hurricane, you got the Russia investigation, you've got the unauthorized leaks and disclosures of everything on the planet, obstruction and corrupt intents and leaks. The number of laws I just went through, and I think I found about 20 different laws, give or take, that I feel like they could probably charge this guy with actual crimes and get somewhere. Instead, much like they did before, they got a case that they're just going to throw. I mean, and understand that previous case that he referenced, the one that they misfiled, this looks like a repeat of that to me, House. I mean, I want this guy to go to jail. It's great if they can do that. But at the end of the day, they have to prove intent. And you got pictures of a bunch of shells. What was he probably intending to do that? Yeah. But it's a criminal case, so we have to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. And I don't see how they're going to do this. This looks like another Lindsay Halligan move to me, which I think was also intentional.
Say that one more time for those who don't know what that is. What was that last reference you just made?
So in the previous charges that they filed against Comey, Pam Bondi waited until basically the day before Comey's statute of limitations ran. And right before the statute of limitations ran, she had a prosecutor, Lindsay Halligan, file the charges. Now, Lindsay Halligan may be a wonderful prosecutor and a brilliant attorney. I don't know her, so it's not a comment about her. The thing is, though, is very, very clearly under the black letter of the law, she was not eligible to bring these charges. She was not properly appointed. She didn't have the authority to be there. And so this was a softball type thing. They could file the charges to try and make it look like the DOJ was doing something for accountability, but it was never going to go anywhere. This wasn't an activist judge. Honestly, I mean, I know we got activist judges. If anybody knows that, it's me. But the reality is that case was filed and designed to be a loss. And it looks to me like this is too. They just don't want to put this guy in jail for real. There's so many things that they could do. I don't know where the RICO charges are. I don't know where the big charges are. There's a ton of things that they could do. The continuous ongoing conspiracy, that's got to be alive and well. I don't know what this is other than just a nonsensical case to try and make it look like they're doing something.
Mm. Well, listen, apparently they put out an arrest warrant for him. Listen to this. Here we go.
So the Department of Justice does not issue arrest warrants, grand juries do. And so the grand jury returned an indictment and arrest warrant. I expect that there will be communication with Mr. Comey's counsel, and we'll go from there. this case will proceed like hundreds of others do every year. There will be some sort of arraignment set by the judge or assigned to the magistrate judge, and when that happens, you'll know about it.
All right, so they're going to actually, I guess, make him turn himself in, and then he'll have to bond out, I guess, right?
Yeah, I mean, they'll get their picture. They can, they're going to get their headlines. They're going to make this a big thing in the press for 5 minutes. But at the end of the day, they're going to have to go into a courtroom, and they're going to have to prove that James Comey intended to make a threat against the president. And you just saw that Colbert clip, right? So he's already got he already laid the groundwork for plausible deniability. They're going to have a hell of a time proving intent in the courtroom. I honestly, House, as much as I want to be wrong on this, I just don't see it going anywhere other than maybe a slap on the wrist.
All right. So let's go to the other one. I'm going to have Nic Hulscher on in a minute about this. What do you make of the top Fauci advisor indicted first criminal prosecution against a senior COVID official? That's over at Nick's website, Dr. McCullough's website. I'm going to have him on next. What do you make of this?
Well, I mean, I haven't read that indictment yet. It just came out today, and I'm glad they're doing it, right? Clearly, everyone involved with COVID needs to be in jail, including Fauci, although Fauci's got the pardon, the auto pen pardon. It's an interesting thing. Here's the thing that I see with all of these, it's kind of the pattern here, House, is they're not bringing the big guns on this. All of this looks to me like, these kind of, let's save face here, let's save face there. Now, I didn't read that. Maybe I'm wrong about this. If I'm not mistaken, though, there were no RICO charges, because if there were RICO charges, there'd be more than just him named. There should be, this COVID conspiracy, there should be RICO charges. There should be, they should be throwing the book at these people, because, they were behind, God knows how many people they killed, through this thing. The amount of fraud that was committed is mind blowing. And, the whole thing is just nonsense. I'm going to read that case very carefully, and I'm going to dig into that. And my guess is I'm going to find the same pattern that we've seen with this DOJ over and over and over again. And that's, we pretend to file something to try and get some headlines, have everybody act like we're excited. They're finally doing something, right? And, but then we see it's a whole lot of nothing. Yeah. Interestingly enough, I didn't hear anything about charges against Bill Gates or Borla. I didn't hear charges about, any of the senior FDA officials who were involved with approving the mRNA poison jabs. I mean, there's so many different things that could be being done. I hope I'm wrong, and I know I'm a bit jaded, but I feel like this is a whitewash.
Let's switch to voting, voter fraud, election integrity. This is a story out of North Carolina. Listen to this, please, Tom.
North Carolina State Board of Elections has identified approximately 4,000 deceased individuals on the state's voter rolls. It comes following a data comparison with a federal database. On April 17th, the state board submitted nearly 8 million voter records to the Systematic Alien Verification for Entitlements database, SAVE for short, as part of its initiative to strengthen the accuracy and integrity of the state's voter registration list. The comparison of voter registration records with the SAVE database is intended to identify any non-U.S. citizen on the voter rolls and ensure that only eligible individuals are registered to vote in North Carolina. The process also helps identify other anomalies, such as duplicate registrations, name mismatches, and deceased voters. Election officials said list maintenance is a routine and necessary function, and the identification of deceased individuals on the voter rolls does not necessarily indicate that illegal votes were cast in their names.
Oh, no, of course not. Again, it did cut out, but just so everybody knows, what they're reporting is 34,000 dead people still on their voter rolls. Yeah, you love how the state tried to pass it off as nothing really big.
They should. Just like Michigan, right? Just like Arizona, just like all these other states. How about Colorado, Tina Peters, right? House, as an attorney, you got to understand, when you go against the DOJ, if I sue the federal government, I'm going against the DOJ, I immediately know these guys have an endless budget. They can assign hundreds of people to a case. It's like going against Jesus. It's almost impossible. And so,
well, with
going
against Jesus is impossible, but it's almost impossible with the DOJ. Yes.
That's why I said it's almost like, right? It's almost like it's not quite that bad, but it's pretty rough. Yeah. Well, and by the way, I keep doing it, so but the thing about this is, what we're seeing is a pattern here. We elected Donald Trump in part to drain the swamp, and unfortunately, his DOJ has been broken from the beginning. There's been, if I'm not mistaken, there's still been less than 150 FBI agents fired since they came in, and yet there were 5,000 assigned to J6. There are so many people that need to be fired in that DOJ and replaced, and until they do, what we're going to get is more of this. Todd Blanche is not doing any better than Pam Bondi, to my mind. And there's a lot of reason to doubt him. He's got, what's her name? Jocelyn, her name's escaping me, still working for him, who is just absolutely awful in J6. There's just so many bad people there. And so what we're seeing is talented, brilliant lawyers who are playing a game to dodge doing their real job. They don't want to hold people accountable. They do, except for the parents who go to school board meetings, that they call terrorists, right? So what we're seeing is, instead of accountability, we're seeing political games to try and make it look like they're doing something, but never actually holding the people at the top accountable. They'll go after the people at the bottom, but not the top.
And if they do at the top, it's not like the big charge, like Russia and
right.
Everything else we've talked about. Here's President Trump talking about it, by the way.
He knew exactly what that meant. A child knows what that meant. If you're the FBI director and you don't know what that meant assassination. And it says it loud and clear. Now, he wasn't very competent, but he was competent enough to know what that meant. And he did it for a reason, and he was hit so hard. Because people like me, and they like what's happening with our country. Our country's become respected again, and all this.
All right, so he says he knew exactly what he was doing. Now, I want to transition this into something we talked about on our Worldview Report newscast tonight. If you go over to the website, worldviewreport.com, I actually have an article over there, and it's about political violence. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Here it is. Jonathan Turley, A Nation Divided, the chilling embrace of political violence in the United States. One poll by the University of Virginia Center for Politics found that 52% of Biden supporters say Republicans are now a threat to American life, while 47% of Trump supporters say the same about Democrats. Among Biden supporters, 41% believed violence is justified to stop Republicans from achieving their goals. An almost identical percentage, 38% of Trump supporters embrace violence to stop Democrats. And what it goes on to show that this is getting very popular with the young people. The young people are starting to kind of really buy into this idea. How much of this do you think plays into what many people have been warning about, and that is a civil war or massive civil violence? If you have people, at this level, elected officials, talking about violence against a sitting president or an incoming president, former president, and now president, we're seeing now the third assassination attempt on him. We're hearing people talk like you and I never heard elected officials in the House or Senate talk, or governors talk the way they do today. When we were growing up, we didn't hear that. Being that you're about my age and we're interested in these things as well, when you were young, so you and I have a long history, even as young people, studying this stuff. Do you join me in saying that this is going to go badly for either way, that the train has left the station, and I think the country's too divided? And I'm going to add another point. This is why we really don't like traveling anymore, even though we started our Worldview Weekend conferences in February of 1993, and my wife and I hosted Worldview events in 300 locations around the country that we personally were at. Not to mention the other things we would accept invitations to speak at. We do one event virtually a year now. You have to bring in so much security. There's so much vetting of who's in the building. It's to the point where even people who just have a podcast, and we, of course, are more than that on 75 terrestrial stations, that those people are at risk. Even anyone that speaks out and has any kind of voice, you are a potential target. And this is only increasing. Does all of this concern you when we put it with what Comey at that level of FBI director should have known better than that? And then you add this to this new poll that shows that a chilling number of Americans on both sides are willing to embrace political violence?
Yeah, this is horrific, House. It's terrifying. And you're right. I mean, I started watching politics when I was a little kid. I was weird that way. But I've enjoyed watching it my whole life, and it's deteriorated. It's deteriorated in a profound way, just like the morality of our country. Everything about our country is deteriorating. Now, we're at a point now where both sides are talking about violence, and it's absolutely abhorrent. I cannot tell you how distasteful that is and wrong it is. But I'm going to tell you, there's one other thing. There's a couple things here that I think are critical that we have to understand. First is we could diffuse this situation easily. If the president would actually get a DOJ that was enforcing the law properly against the elites, and there was actual justice, people would feel much better, right? I mean, you've got Tim Walz up there, who was never even investigated, despite the fact that someone who worked for him left a note saying that Walz told him to kill the former Speaker of the House up there right after she didn't vote for the Somali health care bill, right? Nobody even investigated it. What's happening, and this is a thing that our founding fathers knew it, and it's historical. When people feel like they can't get justice, when people feel like there's two tiers of justice, when the hand of justice is not even, things start deteriorating quickly. That's why it's so critical that we have an unbiased judiciary and prosecutors that take their job seriously. What we're seeing right now is people are calling for and I cannot stress how wrong it is. People are calling for violence because they don't see a way to get justice. They see a two-tiered justice system. And this is, as an attorney, this is something that you can study, you can look at, you can know. And it's something that, our rules of ethics, I know that ethics and attorneys, it's kind of a funny joke. Ha, ha, ha. There's like three of us that still have them, right? But it's something that we should take very seriously. If there was no justice for COVID, there was no justice for J6, there was no justice for so many things. And so people are getting very frustrated, and they're making statements. And this is historically what happens when people can't feel like there's justice. Now, there's one other thing that I think is critical in this House, and that's the First Amendment. So right now we see Jimmy Kimmel and all this stuff, and we see the government going after free speech. Now, hate speech is abhorrent. Obviously, I don't like hate speech. But hate speech is still protected speech under the First Amendment. Now, should he be fired? 100%. 100%. Should the government go after him, though? Should the government be going after someone for what they said? And the answer is hell no, because if you all remember, it wasn't that long ago the government was coming after us for saying that COVID was a fraud, for saying mRNA isn't safe, for saying things like, hey, J6, maybe it was a fedsurrection instead of an insurrection. We had parents who were censored and put on terrorist lists for speaking out at school board meetings. Censorship is a dangerous, dangerous thing. And I've got to tell you, I respect the president pushing for security and those sorts of things. But when he made the statement recently that he was willing to trade his freedoms for security, that is literally the antithesis of what he should be doing. It is wrong. It is not okay. Our freedoms are first and foremost. For 250 years, we've had brave men and women die for our freedoms. And, now we're at a point where we're not only not seeing justice, we're seeing our leaders willing to sell out on the most foundational principles that America has ever stood for under the guise of security or some other nonsense. And this is the reason I think that we're seeing people push to the edge so much. And if we would just get some people that in leadership that weren't corrupt, that weren't selling out, and that were actually standing on principle for what's right, not over what's politically expedient or what's going to get them the next $1 million campaign donation, I think we could start to rebuild our country, because we, the people, don't want revolution. We don't want violence. We want to live peacefully. And it's only in a situation where people are so pushed to the brink that they start talking this way. But we really need to guard against talking this way, because if you talk this way, it leads to people acting this way. And so it's a bad situation. And I got to be honest with you, House, I'm 100% with you. I'm terrified of where we're going. And I'm even more terrified of the fact that so many people seem so unwilling to question everybody, right, left, middle. Nobody's doing right in Washington outside of it, just a handful of good people.
TomRenz.com, TomRenz.com. Thank you for joining us tonight, Tom, helping us get our arms around this breaking news tonight related to James Comey. He also has his own program. You can find it along with everything else at TomRenz.com. Tom, thanks for being with us.
Honor to be here, House. Appreciate you always.
We had Nicole Pearson on last night, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm part of the geofight. So we're doing that. We just dropped that geoengineering lawsuit, which, by the way, as a part of that lawsuit, one of the things that was in there is it looks like the records that were used as to write the paper that justified the Paris Climate Accords, looks like there was a problem with those records, shockingly. I don't want to say that, I don't want to use the fraud word, but maybe global warming's a fraud, and maybe the whole Paris Climate Accord thing was a fraud, just maybe.
Interesting. Well, it was a fascinating interview, and she mentioned that you were involved in it. So thank you again for all you're doing.
It's my pleasure.
TomRenz.com, folks. Tom Renz checking in. We'll be right back after this short break. Nic Hulscher up next. Go to worldviewtalk.com. Get your satellite phone like I have, because you know what? China is in on our power grid. That is a matter of proven fact. If you want to have communications with your loved ones, your family, your children, maybe your spouse travels, maybe you have a child away at college, you want communication should the grid go down. That's why you need a satellite phone, worldviewtalk.com. But look what else they have. They also have solar generators. I have one of their solar generators. I have the Delta Echo 400, a solar generator. So I can, of course, charge my satellite phone. I can run my coffee pot. I can run my whole house if I want to. All the details are there at worldviewtalk.com, or use that number, 1-866-738-3224. They have very friendly operators that will explain to you their products, but you can explain to them what it is you're desiring to acquire. How much electricity are you wanting to generate with this solar generator? Well, they'll tell you what size you need. Worldviewtalk.com or 1-866-738-3224. We got breaking news, as you guys may have heard by now. I reported on it on the Worldview Report. Told you we'd have Nic Hulscher here, and here he is to report on this. Breaking: top Fauci advisor indicted in first criminal prosecution against a senior COVID official. David Marin, criminally charged with hiding emails, destroying records, and evading transparency laws to shape the COVID natural origins narrative. Joining me now is the man that wrote the article, Nic Hulscher. Nic, welcome back to the broadcast. Thank you for being with us. This is big news. By the way, have you noticed that since Pam Bondi was moved out of the way, we're starting to get some traction? We get this. We got another indictment of James Comey. What is the leading indicator here? Wasn't Pam Bondi one that was working in a previous job for Big Pharma? Is that true or false?
It's true. Pam Bondi was consulting with Pfizer in some capacity before she was installed. So, you know, she was obviously quite compromised. And so this new development signals that perhaps...
Let me just throw that in. Just throw in, that's our opinion, that she was quite compromised. That's fair. That's fair. I'm just going to cover our rear end since she's a lawyer. But yeah, I would think the evidence would point to the fact that we got a problem. I mean, if you have lack of prosecutions, she leaves, and now we've got prosecutions being announced. That's, you know, I'm wondering if the people who were doing the work, you know, had done the heavy work and lifting, but she was stopping it, because you wouldn't have all this happening that fast since she left unless it was already in the gears, already being done, but they weren't being allowed to follow through with it, right?
Yeah, exactly. She must have, again, presumably put some sort of hold on those prosecutions or those indictments, because we know they've been working on investigating these individuals for years now. There's been multiple hearings. They've already uncovered multiple major crimes committed not only by David Morans, but also by Anthony Fauci and Peter Daszak and all these other individuals. But what's so huge about today is that this is literally the very first indictment that has been issued against a top COVID official. The very first. We've been waiting for 6 years now, 5-6 years, to finally get some sort of justice, and it appears it is coming. It is coming. Now, obviously, this is not necessarily super high profile, like, say, Anthony Fauci, for example. But David was Anthony Fauci's top advisor, and he was destroying records, concealing records, evading FOIA requests, using his personal Gmail account to debunk the lab leak theory. And it was all laid out in the indictment, and now he's facing decades in prison. And so now we really, really hope that they start to go down the list. And
now,
all
don't
these
you
individuals,
think that what they're doing here is hoping this gentleman will cut a deal and flip and go to work for the DOJ, work with the DOJ to go maybe after Anthony Fauci? Maybe they cut him a deal. He's 78, avoid jail time, but you need to help us. You need to give us the information that we're looking for. And here's what we're looking for. Can you help us with this? And if you help us, maybe we can, like I said, give you a lighter sentence here. Do you think that's what's going on?
Honestly, that wouldn't be bad. It's very possible that could be going on. And honestly, I would take that. This man, while he obviously did bad things, there's people that have done much worse things, for sure, that were more instrumental in the decision-making process. So if he could reveal any sort of key information regarding these high-level figures like Fauci and co and associates and all the other top COVID officials that were there, Deborah Birx, we would like to know as much information as we could, and perhaps he would be able to provide that.
Yeah. Well, let's pray that the real one they're looking for here is Fauci, and that's hopefully what they're going to get is some help from that gentleman, and that'll take care of that. Hey, by the way, did you know the interview we did last week on ivermectin and, how do you say it, Ms. Benadryl?
Mebendazole.
That is now done on one platform alone, over 2 million views. Logan just told me about it before you came on here.
Wow. They blow up every time. Every time.
They do. All right, let's try another one. How to get Pfizer and Moderna mRNA out of your body. That's by your friend, our friend as well, Dr. Peter McCullough. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so the big part is if you scroll down to the bottom, it's a paid one. Yeah, well, okay, the biggest thing here is sweat, heavy sweating, right? Get in the sauna as often as you can and sweat that garbage out. We know the Pfizer messenger RNA, Moderna mRNA spike protein is found in human sweat, and sweat is a form of detoxification of other toxins as well. And so we believe one very natural, very easy way to help rid the body of this garbage is to sweat. Now, obviously, exercise, heavy exercise, intense exercise is one way, but so is sitting in, a very high temperature sauna to get rid of that garbage. We've seen lots of case report evidence, anecdotal evidence, and Dr. McCullough's patients have reported symptom improvement by doing that.
Wow. So I get in an infrared sauna quite a bit, and now I've started walking on the treadmill as of last night, 3 miles a day. I'm going to try to do that 5 times a week because my wife says I have to move more. So I'm going to move more. Got to keep your legs strong. There seems to be a strong connection between strong legs, strong thighs, and avoiding Alzheimer's, dementia, and Parkinson's. And then you add that walking with proper diet, staying off the sugars, the stuff that causes the inflammation. And then, of course, all of our great supplements that we take, like the Gatatana, the Numi, the Bella Grace. Then the sauna. the infrared sauna to get in there and sweat. So my wife, she's the one that put together this whole protocol that I've been on now. I just added the walking to it, but she had me, with the red sauna sweating because she's like, you got to get these toxins out of your body. And that's, again, you and McCullough are showing sweat. It's very important to sweat.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Super important because literally it's getting rid of the junk that's in your body. It's helping, and not only that mRNA, the heavy metals, the forever chemicals, the nanoplastics. You want to get rid of as much garbage as you can. And that appears to be one good way to do it. And we're tracking a patient currently, one of Dr. McCullough's patients. And we have seen so far his spike antibody levels are dropping at a seemingly an accelerated rate compared to before when he started the sauna use. So we're starting to gather some data on it. And yeah, we think it's definitely a promising method.
You notice a common theme here seems to be that the older we get, you're too young to know yet, but the older we get, the less we do physical exercise, most of us. Not some of them in this audience are still very much into chopping wood and doing all the things they do, and they do sweat. But most of us, particularly those of us that wear suits every day and that work indoors, we don't have a lifestyle that promotes sweating. Now, occasionally I do get hot under the suit and the lights, but for the most part, I keep it cool in here. But just our occupation alone is one that you have to go do something to deliberately try to make yourself sweat. If I did not get into the sauna, there's generally not anything that I do on a regular basis that causes me to sweat. Do I go out and sit in the sun? Of course, here in the Mid-South, I can go out there and sit in the sun for 20 minutes and sweat. Absolutely. But you don't do that year round. In a given winter, when we don't have that Memphis heat and massive humidity, in a given winter, if you don't get in a sauna or you're not walking, then I would not be sweating. So I could go months without sweating. And you think about that in the course of our time as we age, right? And more people become more and more sedentary. They're not doing the kind of physical stuff they used to do. And you have to wonder if the lack of sweating and then the lack of movement starts to add up. Why we see the increase in inflammation, these toxins are building up, and now Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's, cancer. You have to wonder if there's a correlation between the lack of sweat, the lack of moving, particularly as we get older, which, is easy to do. Again, particularly for some of us that are in professions where we're sitting a lot.
Yeah, no. And there's multiple large numbers of studies now confirming exactly what you just said. Where when you walk, or when the studies track the movement of millions of individuals, when they walk at least, now it used to be 10,000, now it's 7,000 steps a day, that literally cuts overall death risk, cancer death risk, dementia, Alzheimer's, diabetes, basically everything you can think of, the risk decreases when you have movement, particularly around 7,000 steps a day. And this is verified over and over and over again, because when you sit, not only is your cardiovascular system going to be in a very bad shape, you're not having anything circulate through your body. You want to get that movement in, have the blood start to flow. You want that perfusion into your vital organs. You want to boost that microcirculation, and you will see the benefits. And you're right. People in our profession, we sit all day. I'm always on the computer researching, and you got to get the movement in. And whenever I go work out, I feel, that day, I'm like, I feel the best I felt all week. So it's a very good thing.
We are getting reports tonight, of course, that Comey, they have put out an arrest warrant for the former FBI Director James Comey. But I'll go back to what we were talking about. David Morin's, John Solomon is reporting at Just the News that Morin's, a former top advisor to Dr. Anthony Fauci, was arrested and charged. Now, I knew he was charged, but I didn't know he was arrested. So now we've got an arrest warrant announced this afternoon about Comey. They got an arrest warrant for him. We were told all these arrests would happen, and nothing happened. And now, we're a year and a half into this administration almost. But look at this. Look at all this that's happening. It's like maybe we're on schedule to actually see some things actually start happening with the deep state. I wonder how many in the deep state tonight are sweating bullets, Nick.
Oh, they're terrified. They're terrified because we didn't see anything like this for years. Like, this is literally the point that we were waiting for, some sort of justice. And now it appears this justice has begun across multiple domains, not just public health. So we'll have to wait and see. Now, there's one risk that we have to be aware of, that this was just, to placate, the Trump supporters, placate everybody to make it look like there will be justice. And then this is it. We hope that that's not the case. We really do. But only time will tell. We'll see in the next few weeks. Will there be more and more and more indictments? Let's hope so. Let's hope this isn't some sort of trick. And the big key point will be, does Anthony Fauci, does he get indicted? And if he does, then, we'll start to see some of these dominoes fall.
Can you imagine seeing Anthony Fauci perp walk? Can you imagine that?
That will be one of the greatest days in recent American history, given the crimes, or we'll say alleged crimes, that have been committed. Not only obviously lying to Congress, right? That was completely blatant out in the open, but what about the collaborations with Wuhan, with creating a pandemic that killed and injured millions, with pushing experimental booster shots, mass negligent homicide, millions of injuries and deaths from those. All of this stuff adds up. And so let's hope they start to go after these individuals for the shots too, because again, many crimes were committed. And lastly, the Vyers Law Group has filed criminal referral requests in 7 U.S. states already against Fauci and other top public health officials for abuse, falsification of hospital protocols. They allege they actually committed terrorism-related offenses, murder, homicide, all sorts of horrible things. And so, those requests are sitting there, and they have all the victims, all the documentation of people that were murdered by hospital protocols, thanks to these public health guidelines. So let's wait and see what happens.
This is where I need to pull out my book by Robert F. Kennedy Jr., The Real Anthony Fauci, because I have that book and I have it all marked up, and I interviewed him when it came out. And people just, I think, because of the volume of news, forget what they once knew. It's hard to retain it all, but they forget all the things that were documented in that book by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. that Fauci was up to. Shocking things.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that book, you're right. I can't even remember. There's so much stuff to remember. But yeah, there's an entire book dedicated to it by our current HHS secretary. So, I guess all the DOJ has to do, the attorney generals, just open up the book and, they'll find what they need to find. Yeah,
absolutely. Okay. Nic Hulscher, he's at thefocalpoints.com, thefocalpoints.com. Nic Hulscher. As always, Nick, we appreciate you. Let's see if we can get this to go, clip out of this to go viral and hit 2 million plus views as the one last week did.
Most definitely. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Nic Hulscher checking in tonight with the McCullough Foundation. We'll be right back after this break.
News is moving faster than ever, and so are we. Worldview Tube brings you 24/7 live stream coverage and now real-time alerts when it matters most. Once you have the Worldview Tube app installed, exit the app and navigate your way to Settings. In Settings, locate the tab labeled Notifications. Select the Notifications tab. Scroll down until you locate the Worldview Tube app icon. Select the tab, and here you can turn on and customize your notification experience for the Worldview Tube app. News doesn't wait, and neither should you. turn on push notifications to stay informed. Every headline as it happens.
Joining me now is Michael Weiner. Let's talk about this headline. I covered it in the Worldview Report, but I want to go more into it. What does it mean for you, for me, for your purchasing power, for your savings, for destruction of your savings account? U.S. government sold $524 billion of Treasury securities this week. Inflation to surpass T-bill yields. And what does all that mean in layman terms? Now, I also want to ask you about this. Little research here on hyperinflation. Because what I learned in my research for today's broadcast, I started on this last night and then did some more this afternoon for tonight's show, is that historically when hyperinflation happens, it happens very fast, meaning people think they have time to prepare. And then they realize they don't. You know, it's kind of like, how did the guy go broke? Little by little and then all at once. How did hyperinflation happen? Little by little and then all at once. And people think, oh, well, I've got time. And then pretty soon they don't move their assets around. They don't protect their wealth. And then they find out their wealth is gone. What they've worked for their whole life has been completely debased, destroyed. It takes way too many dollars to purchase things, and you can't sustain your money. Your money's gone. You can't afford to live, or everything you have, you've had to sell to try to come up with cash. Now, I'm listening to some guys that are pretty good at this kind of thing, economics, history. They're reporting that in the few coming years, maybe 2030, 2031, 2032, somewhere in this time range, the inflation is going to get so bad. And I'm listening to some of them say that even the very wealthy are going to be destroyed financially because many of them are not prepared. They think, oh, I got all these stocks. I got millions of dollars in stock, you know. And yet, how are you going to preserve if you're not in a hard asset? So I want to talk to Michael Weiner, because I think he was back there in 1929, the crash. Let's see how he made it through the crash of 1929. And, but really, in all serious, Mike, tell me this. Am I right historically that in hyperinflation generally happens so quickly, people still think they have time to prepare, and then when it really starts rolling, they can't move their assets quick enough?
Exactly. There was a guy who was one of my mentors, a guy named Dr. Franz Pick, who was involved with the Bretton Woods Treaty, which came after World War II, forming the World Bank. And he wrote all about hyperinflation. We had a whole conversation about it because he lived in Switzerland and handled the stuff with Germany when it was going on back with the Weimar Republic. We have a lady who was at Worldview Weekend, actually a client of ours, and also was a child in Germany. She's 90-something, 91 now. God love her. And she literally was sent to the United States with her brother. Each of them had 4 gold coins. She told me stories about going grocery shopping with a bag of cash to go shopping. And it wasn't something you had time to do anything about. It just happened. And probably the best example right now is a country called Iran. I mean, what's going on in Iran right now, their dollar is so screwed up. It's sort of like the same thing that went on in Iraq with the Iraqi dinar. You can't have enough of it to be able to shop because people just can't have a value to the money. That's the reason why they're trying to go digital right now. And that's the reason why they're going to devalue the dollar. When we talk about preparedness right now, hyperinflation will hit, and just like it did factually in 1933, during that period of time when Roosevelt did what he did, we had all those shanty towns. But a lot of people don't realize what they were because they're too young, but people who are old enough heard about those. That's people who owned homes, had no mortgages, but had no way to come up with money to pay the cost of carry on their property, lost them, moved into parks, lived in little made-up houses of wood that they put together, and that's the only thing they had to live with. And then they got in line every day to eat. 2 months earlier, they could have been living in a nice house, sitting about at a table and having a nice steak for dinner, and 2 months later, they're living in a park. That's hyperinflation. That's how quickly it happens.
And of course, we talk about, the crash of 29 and going into the 30s as a deflationary situation. So explain that, was that inflationary or was that depressionary?
Well, it was depressionary because when you go to hyperinflation, the predecessor of hyperinflation is deflation. You deflate and then you hyperinflate because you don't have the money. Everything's gone. It just goes down to nothing. And then you build up from nothing again. And the only way you can do that is spending more money than you have, and it just gets totally out of control. And factually speaking, that's what happened during the Depression because people didn't have any money. There wasn't enough money that they could have to be able to survive. And that's why the oil guys in Texas lost their land because whatever money they had was gone. And Rockefeller came in there and stole it all with Standard Oil. They're trying to do it right now. What we're trying to warn people about is the digital era that we're going to be heading into. When they go digital, they are going to devalue your money. Now, people could turn around and say, well, is that going to affect my stock? My answer is, seriously? What do you think? Seriously? Of course it's going to affect your stock. Why do you think the United States is selling all those treasuries right now? They're selling treasuries because of debt. They're trying to raise money. So they're literally nailing us as Americans because they're putting out all this money that they're borrowing, paying high interest on it, and it's all our money. You and I are doing all this for the people out there, and that's it because nobody wants to buy our debt anymore. So guess what? We're buying it ourselves. They're probably selling some of it back to the Treasury. It's absurd. But this is the activity that's going on. And it's not to be blaming on Donald Trump. He's not the one who did it. This is a perpetuation that's gone on since we went off the gold standard in 1971. And this is when we talk about preparedness. On Worldview Weekend, it's a common pillar of strength to being prepared, from food to phones to communications to all the activity you need to survive in these periods of time. And when we're sitting here and talking about this right now, people talk to me about surviving. I assure you, if it gets totally crazy and you're walking in with a basket of money to try to buy food and I'm walking in with a gold coin, I'm eating and you're not.
Yeah, look at this. I want to go to the notable inflation. I brought up some reports today. Here we go. Weimar Republic. What I'm trying to show is how fast this happens. Once that hyperinflation happens, the debasement. Weimar, Germany, 1921 to 1923. At the peak, prices doubled every 3 to 4 days. Okay? Let's go to Zimbabwe, 2007 to 2009. Okay, now all of us were alive then. At the peak, 79.6 billion% monthly inflation. You're reading that right. 79.6 billion% monthly inflation. They were printing $1 trillion bills. Logan, can you bring up please, a Zimbabwe $1 trillion bill? They're on the internet image. Let's see. Venezuela, 26 to 2010. I have video in one of my documentaries of the middle class eating out of dumpsters, trash cans, garbage trucks. How do you know they're middle class? Because they're telling you, and you can tell by the way they're dressed, but they couldn't afford food. At its peak, what is that? I don't even know what that number is. Is that 10? What is that? There's a Zimbabwe. Look at that. Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe, $100 trillion. A $100 trillion bill, people. That was in your lifetime back in 2007 to 2009. Thank you, Logan. Now let's go to Venezuela again. What is that number, guys? Somebody help me out. 1, 10, 100,000, 10,000, 100,000. That's 10 million, isn't it? Mm-hmm. That's 10 million% annually. They had inflation of 10 million% annually. We just saw, what was that, $100 trillion bill in Zimbabwe? Okay, so Venezuela in your lifetime, folks, 2016, 2020. That just ended 6 years ago. 10 million% annually. Inflation. Let's go to Hungary, 1945 to 46. That was the worst ever recorded, they say. Prices doubled every 15 hours. Yugoslavia, 1992 to 94. 313 million% monthly inflation. That is, I mean, look at Argentina, 1980s. Turkey, late 1970s, early 2000s, not fully hyperinflation, but close. I mean, this is history. And what we're seeing, if you guys study this a little more, is that people began to spend the money as fast as they could, knowing it's going to buy more today than it will tomorrow, or more now than it will in 15 hours. And it just starts to circulate prices and supply. Because what is inflation? Too many dollars chasing too few goods and services. Now you've got in hyperinflation, you have a really decrease in supply because people are running out buying it, knowing, well, I can buy it now today cheaper than I can tomorrow. So let's just buy up all we can while my dollars buy more. And the inventory goes kaput. And therefore, economics 101. The scarcity causes them to drive up prices because even a retailer who can get their hands on the goods knows I can sell this for a lot more. You people say, well, you're plundering these poor people. You're gouging them. Are you? Or are you a retailer saying, I'm not going to get another shipment for maybe weeks or months, and I've got to try to make a living at the best price I can because after these goods are gone, I have nothing more to sell because I can get my hands on anything. So obviously, they're going to raise their prices because there's such a demand for it, and they need the money in order to be able to go and buy other product if they can get it. And perhaps they can't get any product, and so they need to sell at the highest price they can, knowing that it might be the last things that they're able to sell for weeks or months. So they're going to raise their prices so everybody's in the same boat to one degree or another. And the point I'm trying to make here, Michael, is that people who are not aware of this, but even our audience who is, well, I don't give financial advice, I give financial opinion. That's my disclaimer. But what I'm trying to say is, it's my opinion that people should do something because when it starts to fall apart, Michael, many of them are going to have a hard time doing something, moving it. Maybe capital controls goes in. And all of a sudden, you're only allowed to take out so much a week or a month. Now you're like, well, I've got X dollars over here in my IRA, my 401, my savings account. It's sitting there being debased, but they put in capital controls and won't let me move it out fast enough. And it's just another month or two of this, it'll be gone. Its purchasing power will be gone. And people are going to find out the hard way. Now, am I speaking historical truth here or not?
Totally speaking historical truth. And that's why we bring up on the show continually the need to act versus react. We talk about the fact that if you don't start protecting yourself now, you're going to pay a lot more and get a lot less. And eventually you'll get nothing because what the government will do is, like we're finding out from all these people about trying to take their money out of bank accounts, stock accounts, and getting absolutely terrorized to get their money. It's been a nightmare. And then they find out, supposedly they say, well, I have this guy who's been my friend forever and, yada, 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 yada. And at the end of the day, it's not their friend because all of a sudden they realize the fact that that individual really, really just wanted their money. And once the money stopped, they literally tried to stop their ability to get it or didn't even want to help them. This is your money, but understand the fact that they can stop everything you have in paper you do not control. You need to call somebody to try to get it. They can either slow walk it, they can say no, they can make you partial payments, and the government is complicit in that because bail-in, which is limiting the amount of money you can take out of the bank already exists. Thank you, Barack Obama. It exists.
So let me ask you this. Why do you think so many of these grocery stores are going to digital tags? Why are they going to digital tags? Do they know something's coming? I'm just asking a question. Watch this report. Here we go.
America's biggest retailers rolling out digital shelf price labels for all its stores by the end of the year. Walmart says that having digital price labels will help its store personnel do their jobs better and more effectively and ensure that prices are more uniform across different geographies. But the move is somewhat controversial, as some are worried that having the ability to quickly adapt price labels on the fly could lead to things like demand-based pricing that shifts prices for higher or lower depending on how changing dynamics happen for supply chains. Now, some lawmakers are already in the process of introducing legislation to ban the use of digital shelf labels, or DSLs. It's America's biggest.
All right, there you go. So if they know a product's not coming in, there's a problem with shipping, the just-in-time inventory. They know they're not going to be getting something for a while. There's going to be a great demand for a limited product. We can jack up the price. That's what we were just talking about.
Exactly. And they could do it immediately. They don't even have to hesitate. It's just flick a switch. It's all about and they could change it every minute. It's not a matter. It's like we're talking about how they doubled and tripled prices. That could go on all day long. And there's nothing you could do about it. You have absolutely no control on it. Zero. That's why they have digital banking, so they have the capacity to flick a switch on you. And all of a sudden, like everybody who's seen that movie, Trading Places, when he went to use his credit cards, it didn't work. They just flick a switch. And all of a sudden, your access to your money becomes void. And what are you going to do about it? Take them to court? What, a month from now or something? You'll probably be starving by then. The reality is that's why the tangible asset base is so important. That's why countries do it. They don't want to be dependent on paper. They don't want to be held hostage by other countries. They want tangible freedom. And that's exactly why having that within your portfolio is part of the entire preparedness package that, Worldview Weekend emulates.
Okay, let me ask you this. How is this whole thing in the Strait of Hormuz gonna, in your mind, how is it gonna play out when it comes to oil? I mean, we got OPEC today. I guess United Arab Emirates is going to dump out of OPEC. How is all this, what's going on, going to end up impacting the economy? Because they're even saying, I guess Pete Hegseth, Secretary of War, was saying the other day it's going to take 6 months to clear the mines out of the strait. So in your mind, what do you see happening the rest of the year and into 2027 when it comes to prices, inflation, oil prices? What do you see going on? I know you don't have a crystal ball, but what is, based on today's information, what do you see coming?
Okay, if we do not end this situation in Iran and put it behind us, because right now Trump is talking a different story of legitimately trying to negotiate something ridiculous. I mean, if they don't take a complete victory out of this, the Democrats are going to win in the fall. And they're going to run this off. And they're not Democrats, ladies and gentlemen. They're socialist communists. They don't want to create 2 more states. They don't want to sit back and back the Supreme Court. They want to have a constitutional convention, rewrite the republic away, and make us a socialist democratic nation. And I forgot, we'll have a civil war at that point. It's insanity. But what I see happening is the Democrats win. I see gold now. My number moves to 6,500 by year end. I would see oil prices get out of control. And even though we are the largest supplier, we're creating havoc around the world. This has been misplanned. They need to go in and win this. If they do not win this, and this goes on for 6 months, and they keep playing games in the Strait of Hormuz and empowering the Iranians, we're in big trouble. And I think it'll start hitting the markets eventually because they don't want to accept it yet. They can't accept it. The market is perpetuated by the people being in it. It's a food fight for all the people making money there. That's why you never see a real collapse in the market. It just comes back because it's like pick a number. Well, at this point of time, if this does go on, it's going to be a calamity for the economy. The Democrats, socialists, the best way they find to solve things is governmental controls. And when governmental controls go in, we've seen what happened with that with Biden. We've seen what's happened with that with Obama. But people like gravitate to it because they figure, oh, that's the safest bet. Let the government take care of me. The government doesn't need to take care of you. That's the reason why you need to start literally planning ahead. If they do not take that sort of Strait of Hormuz and this collapses, the Democrats will win the election, and they are not Democrats. And that literally opens up a socialist world of the Mandani, little mini Mandanis running all over the place. That's scary in and of itself.
Let's talk about like meat prices. Let's see here. Beef prices in the U.S. have risen 40 to 50% over the past 5 years. That's according to Visual Capitalist. Currently, early 2026, around $12.73 a pound. 5 years ago, average hovered in $8 to $9.50 a pound. Since July 2020, steak prices are up 41%, ground beef up around 48%. So now we've got the problem that we were reporting on tonight on Worldview Report is we have drought in some of the plain states. The wheat, some of those farmers may not even pull the crop out of the field. They may just let the cattle get in there and eat it. The yield per acre is going to be really low. Prices are going to go up on feed. Farmers are going to have to, ranchers are going to have to decide whether to feed the cattle at these higher prices because of the, again, supply and demand. Less feed means higher prices. Are they going to pay it? Or are they going to sell their cattle? And we're already in a problem now with the historic low, what seems to be a historic low, I'm told in reading, of the cattle herd in America that they're trying to build back. So now you're talking about your grocery bill, your beef, your gas, your fuel, your energy, thanks to data centers and other things, oil, natural gas, liquid natural, in liquid natural gas. I mean, this is all extremely inflationary for the average person.
Exactly. And you know what's interesting when you're talking about hyperinflation and things happening overnight? All of us, I can make everybody relate to this right now. Remember what happened March 1st, 2020, when they shut down the government? How fast did things change in your life? You couldn't go to the bank. You couldn't get money out of your accounts. You were being told you couldn't show houses anymore if you're a realtor. You had to stay in. People had to go work at home. Kids had to stop going to school. Overnight, this happened. Your whole life changed March 1st, overnight. And then when Biden got in, after he figured out how to walk into the White House, that idiot started demanding that we need to take shots, that we need to do this, that we can't do that we need to talk about each other. We need to turn in our neighbors in New York State for sitting back and having Thanksgiving dinner and maybe all getting together. This happened overnight. You lived it. Everybody watching this show right now lived that 5-6 years ago. And it happened overnight. And overnight it got worse. And it got worse. And it got worse. And in the state of California, kids didn't go to school for a year. And some kids weren't even going to online school. You couldn't go to church. And if you wanted to go to church, you had to meet in a parking lot overnight. So when people say, oh, this can't happen overnight, it already did. It happened overnight. We allowed them to do it. It's like I said in the last show, we allowed them to do this to us. And it'll happen again.
Yep. Well, guys, pay attention because we are even just in the cattle area. Just looking up more stuff here. Just in the cattle area, we are, the herd is now at historic lows. The size of the herds in America are now at historic lows. Peak total cattle and calves reached 132 million head in 1975. beef cows peaked around 45 to 46 million. So we're now in a situation where as of January 1st of this year, 2026, the total herd is 86.2 million head. That's the smallest since 1951, Michael. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because whether it's weather conditions that are impacting crop production and feed for cattle, or it's the inflation of things going up that making it difficult for the farmers. Again, the meat packing plants, some of them CCP owned. The meat packing plants seem, from what I'm being told by the ranchers themselves, because we have a big audience in some of the ranching states like South Dakota, North Dakota, their meat packing plants, they're making big money. It's not being passed on to the farmer, the rancher. And so they're not making it. Prices are going up. Prices are going up. They're going out of business. They can't sustain lower herd, higher prices. And this is, again, where you get into an inflationary situation, too many dollars chasing too few goods and services. And yet they keep printing the money, or they at least keep expanding the financial, docket, the spreadsheet of the government, with the U.S. government now sold $524 billion of Treasury securities this week. Now, this is what they've sold. The question is, who's buying it? Is the government not buying some of this themselves? Who's buying this?
The government. The government. And they're trying to sell it off to people, but a lot of people don't want it. But first of all, they're selling it back to the government, but we're also putting out money and paying interest upon interest. We owe debt. We're paying interest on the debt. We're not paying any principal. So if, we all are smart enough, we got a bill. And you all know if all you make is interest payments, eventually what happens? It overtakes you. And that's exactly what's going on here. The debt keeps going up. We keep spending. We keep paying money out on a overpriced manner to people to take our debt. We can't get countries to buy our debt anymore, so we buy it ourselves. All I can tell you is that it's a perpetuating situation. Our debt is continuing to turn over, and heading into the fall, we've got a big flip of legitimately trillions of dollars. Our credit rating stinks. We've lost the AAA rating. We're now AA rated, and we're sinking. And now this situation in Iran. I know that, look, the alternative to President Trump is a nightmare. He's doing what he can. I don't disagree with what's going on there. But at the end of the day, if they don't finish the job, the damage upon us is going to be overwhelming, literally. And it's just going to cause if they win this election, those socialist Democrats, we will not have a day of peace running up to the 2028 election. And they will make it impeachment. They will sit back, destroy everything, bring up every negative in a manner to win the nation like they dumped it with Joe Biden.
Mm-hmm. And, the average, there's a lot of people that are not paying attention to all this, by the way. I'm going to play a clip for you here. Find it real quick. A lot of people aren't paying attention. I don't know where they're getting their information from, but they're not getting it from here. They're not paying attention, and they're going to wake up and they're going to say, how did this happen? I'm telling you, and again, I don't give financial advice, I give financial opinion, but you need to be thinking, in my opinion, about taking profits off the table, taking assets off the table, protecting it, getting it off the dartboard. Because we know that the progressive Marxist Democrats want to steal whatever you have worked for. In my Worldview report tonight, I talked about the difference between the Reagan years, when the Democrats wanted to tax and spend for social programs. And I was comparing it in this article that I was basing the report on. Today's Democrats want to tax to enrich themselves and their special interest groups, just as Frederick Bastiat, in his classic book, The Law, said they plunder for themselves or special interests. How is it you have people reported like Ilhan Omar and these people come in here with nothing and end up being worth millions and millions and millions of dollars? And the article was pointing out in the Reagan years, the Democrats taxed to grow the size of government and for social programs. Well, it seems as though now most of these Marxist Democrats, they're for policies that are taxing the taxpayer, the citizens, to enrich themselves and their friends. Look at the Somali case in the Twin Cities. Now, people are going to wake up and go, well, how did all this happen? And your assets, you didn't bother to get them off the radar where these criminals and crooks can steal your stuff. And here's an example I saw today. It's an interview between Bill Maher and David Cross. Listen to this. Listen to this.
I mean, I'm politically more Democrat socialist. I believe.
You're socialist. Again, I think you're plainly then you're to the left of me if you even say you're a socialist.
Well, I said democratic socialist.
I know, but I know what democratic socialist is. That's Mandami, who's a straight up communist.
No, he's not.
Okay,
no, he's not.
Okay, he has someone working.
Bill.
Yeah,
all right.
He is, first of all.
Okay.
He has someone working for him named Sia Weaver.
Okay.
Have you read about her?
I have not.
See, that means you're in a bubble.
Okay.
Because you should have.
Okay.
Okay,
so
let me tell you who she is. She's
edify
like,
me.
She's like one of his top lieutenants. His big issue was the rent's too high.
Mm-hmm.
She's the head of, like, we're going to fix housing.
Mm-hmm.
This is like what got him elected. He has not disavowed her, and I could show you all her tweets that she's put out over the last few years in quotes. And one of them is, elect more communists.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you have to read between the lines if somebody he stands with and by is saying, and also her other quotes are like, all home ownership is racist.
Well, that's ridiculous.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yes, I have an issue with that thing that she said. I don't know this woman.
Okay. So here's this guy, and I don't even know who that guy is. Any of you boys in the control room know who that is? David Cross. Is he an actor? Well, the point I'm trying to make is he's defending people, and he doesn't even know what they stand for. And Bill Maher says, you live in a bubble. Most Americans, do they not, Michael, live in a bubble? They don't really understand what's going on. And when this stuff starts to collapse, there's going to be a small percentage of Americans who knew what was coming, understood the times, and made preparations. You know what the Bible says? A wise man, a prudent man sees danger and takes refuge. The fool ignores it and suffers for it. This audience is made up of people who watch every day because they want to know what's going on. They want to understand the times. They want to do their best to protect whatever they've got. And everybody has some wealth. Maybe it's $2,000 in your bank account. Maybe it's $200,000. But whatever you have left over after you've paid your bills, that is your wealth. That's your savings, right? And there are many, many in this audience that watch every night because they want to understand the times. They want to have a Christian worldview and think clearly on the issues and know how God would have them to respond. But this is a small percentage of the population. Here's this guy saying, I love Mandani, and Bill Maher's telling him, but he's a communist. And he's like, that's crazy talk. And Bill just proved to him, well, he's got communist policies being promoted by the people around him. The reason I played this is because you can say, well, that's a leftist. No, the average person in your neighborhood is living in a bubble, doesn't really know what's going on. And trust me, when this begins to collapse, they will not know what to do. They will be paralyzed with indecision, with fear, and a lack of knowledge to have wisdom. They won't even know what to do. If I could get my hands on my money, even though they've put in capital controls, what am I going to do with it? They don't know what to do with it because they've never thought through this. They've listened to a financial planner that told them their whole life, just put it in this market and long-term historically, you'll be fine. They don't, I'm sure the financial planner didn't say, oh, by the way, the people that lost their shirt in 1929, it took for the 1960s for some of their stocks to get even again.
Sure.
And they don't know what they're voting for. Logan has a clip that shows they don't even know what they're voting for. Watch this.
Hey man, I'm with the Zohran campaign. Can I get your pledge for support?
Sure.
Oh, amazing, awesome. I'm required to tell you about a couple of his policies. You're cool with socialism?
Yep.
Awesome.
I voted for him in the primaries.
Oh, great. Globalize the Intifada. You're cool with that?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Awesome. It basically means to like attack Jews worldwide, but like.
Okay. No. Good. No.
You want to vote for Zohran or?
I already am planning on it.
Oh, no way. Okay, can I get your pledge for support? All right, so I just have to read you a couple of his policies. Okay, so he's going to tax whiter neighborhoods?
Yay!
You're cool with that?
I love
Yeah,
tax
white people, right?
I'm half black, so.
Are you cool with taxing companies so high that they're forced to leave the city and take hundreds of thousands of jobs with them? Okay.
That part, no.
Yeah, it could even be millions of jobs, but.
I'm not going to sign.
Okay, all right, have a nice day.
And those were real policies, right, Logan?
Yep.
And the average person doesn't know what these people stand for, yet they voted for them, they defend them. And let me tell you something, the people that live in your middle-class neighborhood, most of them are just as ignorant. So all I'm saying tonight is understand historically where we're going. The planners are telling us going digital, going to be able to control everything, capital controls. When it moves into massive inflation, it begins happening very fast. When people realize how their wealth and their savings is being destroyed, most of them will not have time to do anything about it. Capital controls will likely have already gone into place. They will be locked into the system, and they'll be wishing that they had listened to us, give our financial opinion, and make a decision accordingly. But that many of them don't listen to us. So this audience will be the very small percentage of the country that actually has prepared and know what's happening and why it's happening. But watch as people run around like a chicken with their head cut off, having no idea how to even process what's happening. And you cannot continue on this path of spending and debt like we are and not reach the point that we're warning about. I mean, do you really think they're going to be able to switch to a new system, Michael? The absolute destruction of the US dollar? Or will it be the destruction of the US dollar that flips everybody to the new system? I don't know how they do a smooth transition. Do you?
There's not going to be a smooth transition. It's like the example I gave in 1971. You went to the bank with $100,000 in a briefcase. The day before they took us off the gold standard, and they had to give you $100,000 in gold and silver. You said, "I'll come back tomorrow." You come back the next day, they gave you nothing. How vivid is that? But when we're sitting there talking about people right now are like almost sheep. We've all been like that. We've walked around like the Walking Dead. Look at most people come home at night. They grab a beer. They sit back, turn on a game, and they say, "As long as I can continue to do that, I'm okay." And my financial guy says, "You can retire at some age, and you'll be okay." Maybe you won't be. Maybe you need to just pay attention, and all of a sudden, when everything starts happening and changing, and the rug gets pulled out from under you, and you can't come home and have that beer because you don't have a beer, or your TV isn't working because you can't keep the cable up to do so, or you can't watch a game because they changed the rules from being free on TV for streaming because the ball players need to make more than $200 million a year. They need to make $240 million a year. There used to be some ball players, and I have their children as clients right now, who played for the love of the game. I have one of them, I can't mention his name, his family was my clients, but literally played for the love of the game. He said, "I had a wonderful life. I lived an upper middle class life my whole life. I loved it. But I can't understand these guys getting paid tens of millions of dollars." Why? Because it's a greed. It's a roller coaster. They're making billions. They're making. What are we making? You can't go to a ball game anymore. I used to go to a ball game when I was a kid for $2. I took the bus and I snuck in at 2 after the second inning. They let us in for free. You can't take 4 people to a ball game anymore for less than $1,000 most of the time. Think about it. This is insanity. We're not paying attention. It's just like you're saying, Brandon. They don't want, and the financial guys out there or gals are going to tell you what's necessary until they can't make any more money off of you, and then they got to step aside and tell you to hold on, it'll come back. That's the worst thing you could do.
Yep. All right, there you go. Find out about how to put gold into your IRA, take physical possession, et cetera, at worldviewgold.com, 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 or simply call 1-877-864-1072, 1-877-864-1072. All right. Yeah. The most expensive games. Los Angeles Dodgers, 413. Let's see. Average cost for a family of 4 to attend a ball game. You want to go to see the Los Angeles Dodgers. It's going to cost you about $413, and then add the food to it.
And the parking.
And that's the cheapest tickets. Yeah, that's the nosebleed sections, right?
Ticket. I mean, you get good seats, you're going to pay $1,000.
Can you imagine?
Ridiculous. Really.
Wow. The Marlins, $570. No. The Cubs, $570 for a family of 4.
For the worst seats.
Wow. And then you had the food and the parking, like you said. Amazing. Whew. All right, worldviewgold.com. I did fact check you on that when you said what you did. I'm like, what? But there you go. By the time you had in the food and the parking, you're in far off. Family of 4, and you're in the worst seats. There you go. Worldviewgold.com, worldviewgold.com, 1-877-864-1072. There you go. Thank you, Michael.
Take care, Dolly. Good night.
Good night. We'll be right back after this break.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work. Try to see a doctor this week, or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Go to worldviewhealthcare.com. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. worldviewhealthcare.com. That's worldviewhealthcare.com.
The emergency kit available at worldviewhealthcare.com. Make sure you don't have to go to urgent care. I got pneumonia. I didn't have to go. I took this last year. Stayed at home. Went to bed. Joining me now is Dr. Lana. Dr. Lana, welcome back to the broadcast. We have a study here. Harvard scientists, they link gut bacteria to depression through hidden inflammation trigger. Sadly, we have so many people that suffer from depression. It's almost hard to believe how many struggle with depression, something I don't really recall as a young person, seeing this as it is. And it has to have something to do environmentally, right? And what we're taking into our bodies. Yesterday, I had on attorney Nicole Pearson. Maybe Logan can send you that interview, but she is suing in federal court in Colorado over chemtrails and has a PhD who is at NOAA, who is a whistleblower now, talking about this. So she's going through the court process, and we're going to follow that. But man, how interesting, because you and I, again, last week, we're talking about all the leads and the different things that show up, the metals that show up in people's brain that's contributing to Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's, that kind of thing. And I want to get your response on that, number one, what we talked about yesterday, and then get into this gut bacteria and depression. But what do you make? I mean, chemtrails, that kind of thing we didn't talk about for a long time. It was kind of considered conspiratorial. But now you got state legislatures, including mine in Tennessee and others, passing laws to ban this. So obviously it is, with whistleblowers coming forward, a proven thing. What do you know, if anything, about it? And how has it contributed to metals showing up in the body? Because I told Nicole last night, I remember being at one of our Worldview weekend rallies in Wichita, Kansas, probably 15 years ago. And a natural medicine doctor was there talking to Melissa, and later to Melissa and I at the end of the conference when everyone had left. He was still there. And he was talking about testing the blood of his patients and how many of them he was finding different things in their blood that should not be there based on what they do for a living. And he said, I can only assume it's because it's being sprayed in the air. Then we went and looked last night, as we have over the last few years, all the military, 1950s, 1960s, spraying people, whether it's San Francisco, whether it's the government spraying people in St. Louis. So why would we be shocked that they may be spraying something in the air, which this attorney, Nicole Pearson's saying, part of what they're doing is creating clouds. The clouds, what they do is hold down the heat onto the earth. Now the temperatures go up. They use the rise in temperatures to say, oh, you see, we have global warming. Now we need to implement all these, tyrannical policies about how far you can drive your car and everything else. So I think they're creating a problem, manufacturing a problem, using data or wiping out old data that they could use as a baseline. Now that's gone. Now they're getting this new data that shows, hey, look, here's what the temperatures are. And therefore, global warming is a thing. Therefore, we have to restrict people's movements, their ability. We have to have carbon tax, carbon credits, etc. So with all that being said, how do you think chemical spraying, chemtrails as they call them, fits into the whole issue of depression before we get into depression and gut bacteria and hidden inflammation?
Well, you said a lot of really important things, Brandon. I'll go back and say one important point that just to surmise the preponderance of everything, that you said, but they have done studies where they have taken the umbilical cord blood, of infants. All of them, tens of thousands of babies have had at least 140 chemicals in their system. They've tested thousands of Americans. So this is prevalent. I mean, if we can consistently, safely, easily clean out the heavy metals and the toxins from our system, and we have amazing ways to do that. That's really easy. That's number one, because it is just pervasive, all these chemicals. And then if you start talking about chemtrails and I remember hearing about that in school decades ago when I was studying natural medicine and even diet and lifestyle, intervention many years in school. And if you look into it, or if people question it, they say, oh my gosh, it's just, the condensation because the air is really cold up there. And then it's just the jet exhaust. That's what it is. And so they don't want people really looking into that. But like you said, and like your, Nicole Pearson that you had on, really intelligent, really smart, because there's too much illness, especially in this Western developed, amazing nation that we live in. I mean, we rank below 38th now in health and wellness, and we spend the most in healthcare out of any nation in the world. So why do we have autoimmune diseases and depression and anxiety and brain fog, and we're getting injections, when babies are coming out of the womb, and you've got the COVID, scenario. And now, chemtrails, this has been a conversation for many years, and people have symptoms like fatigue, or they have cardiac issues, or they have depression. And it goes back. This has been a conversation for many, many years. So I applaud Nicole Pearson and, for all the work that they are doing there, because it is absolutely a topic that needs to be in the forefront. But if you ask about it, like I said, or if people look it up, or if you're in a conversation about it, and they look it up, they'll find that, it's just the condensation because the air is really cold up there and it's the exhaust from the airplane. Well, I don't think so. We are really sick in this country, and we have brilliant doctors and major medical systems. So there's something awry that's going on with this country.
Nicole pointed out last night how
chemicals.
We can tell the difference between the condensation and what is the other spraying, and including putting it in the fuel of jetliners. Putting some of this stuff into the fuel of jetliners. So, and we played a clip of RFK Jr. on that as well. So there you go. So I'm just going to say again, this is why I said this to her last night, why I am more committed to swishing at least once, if not twice a day with my Numi, because I want that glutathione to detox my cells, and because it will, according to studies, remove those metals from your brain, helping to prevent Alzheimer's, dementia, and Parkinson's. That's what the studies show. I'm not making claims. I'm telling you what the studies show. No. And so why would I not want to detox my cells? I don't want dementia or Alzheimer's or Parkinson's. And by the way, my wife, as we discussed last week, says, Brandon, she's been hounding me for months on it, which she loves me. She does. I don't, it's not hounding. I don't want to sound like she's a nag on me. She's not, but she's encouraging me is the better word. You got to walk. You got to move. You got to move. You're spending too much time sitting at the desk, studying, writing your books, on television. You got to move more. So I got the guys to get my treadmill.
A walking pad?
My treadmill that I bought 27 years ago out of the attic. And last night I walked for 3 miles. And I'm going to commit to walk 3 miles a day, at least 5 days a week. So there you go.
Excellent. Excellent. And you can walk under a desk and still get some work done and still do some research. And while you're just constantly walking
I'm putting
and moving,
a book up on
the desk.
I put a book up on the treadmill in front of me. I actually watched some of our own programming. I put up a smart device in front of me and was actually watching some of our own programming here at the network. So yeah, you can do other things. You can take a phone call or two, But yeah, I walked the 3 miles and my wife walked in and she was shocked. She was like, "Oh my word, he's actually doing it." She was so pleased. So because any of you that are emailing my wife about it, apparently there are some of you that are so worried. You're regularly communicating with her. Thank you for your concern, but I'm now committing to walk at least 3 miles a day, at least 5 times a week. So there you go.
There you go. Everyone loves you. No, truly, they want you to be healthy for a long, long time, including me, Melissa, your audience. You said something really important again, too. Glutathione is the only molecule that will remove all toxins, chemicals, forever chemicals, even peroxynitrite from your cell phones and your computers, lead, aluminum, the list goes on. And this is the fastest, most affordable, most effective delivery system of glutathione in the world. Then your mitochondria needs supported with nutrients. That's the powerhouse of your cells. And that's the Gatatana. And people don't realize, Brandon, that these two things alone, it's a miracle from God that we know about them. And that Dave Hunter spent his whole life researching this, and Stephen Scott spent his whole life, researching glutathione. And these are two wonderful, amazing, conservative Christian men that spent their lives, researching this. And the Gatatana is God's food. Your cells need food. Most of the food we're eating, you talk about gut bacteria and poor gut bacteria. We're not even breaking down the healthy food that we're eating to allow the nutrients to get inside our cells. But you don't have to worry about that with the Gatatana because it's microscopic and you get God's nutrients right in your cells. And the glutathione removes those dangerous toxins. It couldn't be an easier way for your whole family to fight all of that they're doing to us and remain healthy and win this game.
Let's go to bacteria, gut bacteria, and depression.
Your gut is your second brain. You have a nervous system in your gut. So this is what's interesting. The healthy foods, meaning plant foods and greens, your Gatatana, your leafy greens, the healthy plant foods, vegetables, your Nana would say, eat your vegetables. She knew what she was talking about. Your healthy gut bacteria feeds on green foods, feeds on plants. Your unhealthy gut bacteria feeds on meat and dairy and junk food and sugar. So it really is true. You've got to eat your greens and eat your vegetables. The Gatatana is a huge help. But when your gut flora is unbalanced, it affects your mood and your sleep because hormones are made in your gut to help you sleep and unwind. Hormones are made in your gut to help you balance your mood. So this is real. It's why you talk about children with, you hear about children with Asperger's or ADD or autism, and you've got to do your best to get healthy food in them, and they don't always want to eat healthy food. They're very, very sensitive. So an easy thing to do is to get a little bit of the Gatatana and, hide it in some plant-based yogurt or something that they like, and get 1 or 2 scoops of that in them every day, because that is going in and helping to balance your gut flora. And I'll tell you one more quick thing. You know what unbalances your gut flora in seconds? 1 pharmaceutical drug, 1 blood pressure medication, just 1 pill, over-the-counter aspirin, acetaminophen, ibuprofen, alcohol, sugar, junk food, the meat and the dairy, all of that quickly unbalances your gut flora. And you've got to do everything you can to maintain more good gut bacteria and less bad. You're always going to have the bad guys. It's just like the military, but you've got to make sure you've got more Navy SEALs, more special ops, right? More Green Berets than you do the terrorists, to use my military analogy.
Love it. All right. Dr. Lana, she is at inspiredbywellness.com, inspiredbywellness.com. And as always, we appreciate our weekly visits, Dr. Lana.
Love them. God bless you, everyone.
You too, folks. Check out the great products we're talking about here. Swish for Life, the Gatatana, and the Numi, which is the glutathione, and the Gatatana, which is the phytoplankton, all available at worldviewtube.com/sponsors. All right, that's our broadcast for tonight. If you appreciate all we're doing, roll the music. Let's call it a night. If you appreciate all we're doing, we appreciate your support. Oh, you know what we got in this week? We got in many boxes of these business cards. So we're going to try to get caught up as fast as we can. We ran out of a bunch of them. We're going to try to get caught up as fast as we can. But if you'd like to order a stack of 20 and pass these out to your family and friends to tell them about Worldview Tube, do that. Order them up. Worldviewstore.com, worldviewstore.com. They're absolutely free. Thank you for promoting the network. Till next time, I'm Brandon House. May God save America. Take care.
Faith, spiritual values, moral issues, government, economy, education, work, responsibility.